All right, we are rolling. So here we are. Hello, you guys. This is great. Let me know on text whether you got this or not, and then we'll get started with this. But sorry for the technical difficulties. Wow, that was pretty amazing, and I can share with you later on what I learned. You know, all these difficulties, yeah, they're tough, and it makes you all nervous and all that kind of stuff. But then also, man, you learn so much in that, and I just learned a ton about Wirecast and YouTube and what you should and shouldn't do. So here we are. Let me see if you guys have are catching up to me here, and then we'll get started. So I'm just gonna wait to see if you're seeing these. Let me know. Give me a thumbs up on texting if you're seeing this, and then I'll get going with Authentic Interaction Mastery here. So, you know, this has been a good morning because, you know, again, when you look at these things, that nervousness, you know, rises up. It's pretty hard to go oh my gosh, this is so hard, this is so tough. But then you just have to keep at it and keep trying to problem solve and figure out how you're going to work around things. So, so yeah, this is, oh, I'm getting feedback that the audio is low. Let me check on that 1 second while we do that. Okay, my mics are working fine. So, well, I think we're just going to go with that and see. Hold on, let me check one more thing here. Well, I want to give you guys the best I got, so, yeah. You know, all my audio is showing fine, so we're just going to go. So I know that was a little bit of time there. We're going to give you the full treatment here as well, so I hope you can stay over a little bit because I got a lot to cover today, and it's such an important topic today. But let me just start with saying, you know, we're doing Authentic Interaction Mastery, and that's showing up authentically in every interaction we have. And my belief is that when we show up authentically, man, things just change, and more is exchanged than just value, the dollars for transaction when we're selling or something like that. But really it is when we show up authentically, something intangible gets exchanged. And this has been, authentic interaction has been kind of the unit of value of my career and of my schoolwork as well. When I was in organization communication, chemical engineering, organization behavior, all those things were all leading towards looking at that unit of value of two people interacting and saying, what gets exchanged when that happens? And sometimes what gets exchanged is value, it gets exchanged as wisdom, confidence, trust. So in order to really get here, let's talk about showing up authentically just now here where you are. So here we go. First of all, remove any distractions that you have. So if you've got, you know, if you're trying to multitask, please don't. Just focus on this today. This is your time for your learning to show up and be here. So remove all those distractions that you might have. Secondly, if you've got a journal, bust it out. Take some notes, show up and be here with what you got, and take some notes and circle some things as very important notes and action items you're going to take. And also be open and vulnerable. I'm going to be asking some questions along the way, and you can just surface those questions, or you can go oh yeah, I'm really not doing that well, or oh, I should really be evaluating that. I need to be a little bit maybe easier on myself or harder on myself, but be vulnerable, be open, because that's where change really happens. So I encourage you to get here, be present, and here we go into an exercise that I love to do, and most of the folks that I've worked with here have seen this before, but we're going to do what I call Aliven the Senses. And so if you would just sit back, put your papers down, your pen down, get comfortable in your seat maybe, and just take a deep breath. Go at your own pace, breathe in deep, let it out, bring it in, and let it out. just feel the weight that you have going into your body. So feel that going into your body, that weight, and what do you hear that you haven't heard before? What is it that you need to hear? And what do you taste in your mouth? Maybe it's, something sweet, something bitter, but what do you taste? And next breath in, what do you smell? What do you smell that's different? And then, what do you feel across your skin? Maybe it's how your shoes are binding on your feet. Maybe it's how there's a slight breeze in your home or wherever you're sitting. Your clothes are maybe hanging on a part of your body that you haven't really noticed before. Remember to breathe. Now, open your eyes, but go with soft eyes. And we call it soft eyes because you don't look at something, but what is out there that's kind of asking for your attention? What do you see? Great. Okay, coming back here. Okay, take a deep breath. Now we're really here. I got another member that's trying to get in here, so I want to make sure. So let's just keep going here and just go on with this and say, so those are the ground rules. Now that you're really here, let's go into what we're going to do today. So in Authentic Interaction Mastery, this is the Su Shu Fu framework. The setup, when you have an interaction, what gets changed there? A value. Value gets exchanged. And value isn't just like dollars or somebody bought something from you or you even convinced somebody something, a decision that gets made. But value is things like, confidence, trust. Those kinds of things are the things that get exchanged when we show up authentically. So when we do that, we should set those interactions up. We need to show up authentically, and then we need to follow up. Now, that may sound, kind of normal, but when I look at this, I think about setup, and I think about, do you write down your objectives before every conversation, the important ones? Wow, like literally write down the objectives. What am I supposed to get out of this? What are some of the objections that the person might have? What's that person's social style? What barriers or objections will that person have? Think about all those things and write them down ahead of time. We have an intentional interaction planner that we use for that. But wow, setting that up, because I love to say this, is planned interactions just go better than unplanned ones typically. And so let's really sit down and go like, let's set those things up. And then how do you show up? A lot of times we show up to interactions, we have an objective, we want something from that person, and oftentimes I used to be a part of a selling organization. For 17 years I ran that in the company I was with, and showing up as selling, I have this to sell, and I'm trying to sell it to you, and I'm not even looking at you as the customer. What is it that you need? What is it that you want? It's not about my product or service that I'm trying to shove at you. It's listening to your needs and listening to what you really want. And so showing up is really watching and listening for the nonverbal cues. And then following up, this is so huge. So many times you get at the end of the meeting, it's like, it was a great meeting, high fives. Why? Well, because we feel good, it was awesome, it was all this kind of stuff. It's like, but what were the follow-up action items? Did you line that up right before you left the meeting and said, this is what you need to do, this is what we're going to do, here's the timeline we're going to do it in? Is that follow-up really well planned out? All that is so important to get right. So that's set up, show up, follow up, with all the important interactions we have in a month, and my view is that we have at least 10 important interactions every month, be it with customers, collaborators, partners, coaches, we're getting coached, we're coaching people, whatever it is, but we have at least 10 important interactions every month. And doesn't it make sense that you take the time to write down what are the objectives for those 10 things? Just spend that time. So I'd like you to think right now, name 5 people or roles that are significant, very significant to your success. Just take a few seconds here and write down who are the 5 people that are really important in your success. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to do that. Go ahead. Okay. My 5, my business coaches. I've got business coaches that I work with, so that's important. I've got personal coaches, personal development coaches. They're important to my success. And then every month I have all my relationships. I know I've got a spreadsheet of all the relationships I have. But one of the things I do with that is I look at what are the relationships that have high impact on me and my life and my business. And then what the actual impact is. And with the people that have high impact potential but low actual, gosh, I need to be contacting those people. So those people are really important in my life. They could be prospects. They could be really important people in my life. And then, of course, prospects. In our world, have you talked to prospects today? And those could be old customers, new customers, never been before customers. But what are those prospects? And then, of course, on my list, I have my significant other. So those are my 5. If you want to share what your 5 were in the comments below. But again, I go back to, now if you look at going forward, you listed these people as your success. Who were 2 or 3 important interactions that you had last week? So go ahead and write that down in your journal. What are 2 or 3 important interactions that you had last week? Write those down in your journal. Great. For me, I had a whole bunch of them. I have a story coach. So I met with my story coach this week. That was awesome. I met with a couple of clients this week, which was great. I met with my online business coach, and he gave me some great ideas about how to promote some of the things that I'm working on. I met with my videographer this week to talk about our dry run to our next Wisdom Council event, which is we're going to do our dry run to an exotic location later on this month. So we were talking about what are some of the digital outputs that we're looking for there. And then here's my last one, prospects. I didn't talk to any prospects this week. I didn't email anyone. Oh my gosh, that's so terrible. So part of it is I just need to get on board with talking to more of the prospects out there. So for me, when I do this, when I look at my past week, one of the things I look at are, what are the gaps? And those gaps, sometimes it's just by listing out, oh man, this week I should have called these people, so now next week I'll make sure I put that on my agenda. So that's last week. Now I'd like you to pick one of those interactions that you had, one of those interactions, and we're going to go through an assessment. This is on the intentional interaction plan, but we're going to go through, pick one of those interactions. For me, I'm going to pick the client that I met with. The client I met with this past week, and I'm going to evaluate this interaction. So first of all, my objective with this client was to help this person plan, a couple of the projects that they have going on, plan a couple of the interactions that they're going to have over the next few weeks as a coach and as a trainer. So this interaction, the first question is was this interaction well planned? So go ahead and rate yourself on a 10-point scale, 10 being like, wow, this interaction was really well planned. I wrote down the objectives. I know what the objections were going to be. I wrote down maybe some questions I was going to ask. all of that, I just had that all written down. This was set up so well that it just was going to knock it out of the park. So on a 1 to 10 scale, rate this interaction. Number 1 would be, I just showed up. I knew it was on the schedule, but I didn't do anything about it, and I just showed up. That's a 1. Okay, for me, in this interaction, I gave myself a 3. About 10 minutes before the conversation, I took out a sheet of paper. I wrote down, here's the things I want to cover with this person. But that's not really an intentional interaction plan, so I feel like I really did not set this up very well. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I gave myself a 3. To increase this more, to make that 3 a 4 or 5 or 6, I would sit down and actually do the intentions and write down an intentional interaction plan. Second question, showing up. I engaged in this interaction as my best self, as the best me that I could be. So 1 would be like, oh, it was such a difficult conversation. I had to not be myself. I had to kind of be a fake me. I just didn't show up the way I know I could or should. 10 would be like, I was the full me and all 100% of me showed up for this meeting. Sometimes most of the time you don't show up as that 10. So where are you in this conversation with the one that you picked? On a 1 to 10 scale, 1, I just said things probably just weren't me. I was being someone else. And 10 being, yeah, I was totally me in this. For me, I gave myself a 9. I really showed up in this conversation with this client in a way that I felt like I was totally present. Now, I didn't give myself a 10 because, did I really show up vulnerable? Did I ask these great questions? And sometimes if I didn't set it up well, I'm not going to show up as well either. So I give myself a 9 on that one. I could have just been more me. That's question number 2. Question number 3, follow-up. Everyone agreed to the next best action of integrity. What, who, and when. So when you got to the end of the conversation, these are the actions that were the next steps. So it'd be like, who's going to do what? When are they going to do it? What's the outputs? What are the deliverables? What does that look like? So on this one, give yourself a 1 if you're like, yeah, we had a great meeting, but we didn't agree to action items. There was no deadline set for the next conversation or, no scheduling of things. But we had a good meeting. Well, you have to give yourself a 1. A 10 would be like, man, the output of this was so clear. We're going to have this date follow up. This is the information they're going to collect. This is the output we're going to go over when we talk about things next. So that would be a 10. For me, I gave myself a 7. We did do some really good things here in terms of what are the outputs and what's next. But one of the things that we didn't do well, I didn't schedule a next call with this person to say, let's do a follow-up. Oh, what a huge miss on that. So not scheduling a next follow-up conversation, you can't give yourself a 10 on that. All right, the next question, authentic. The interaction was extremely authentic. We jumped the authentic chasm, meaning there was a point here where there was a risk involved and you're going like, man, should I take this risk with this person? And then you just go like, yeah, I'm going to take that risk. I'm going to go in and answer that question. I'm going to go to that vulnerable place. It's a risk when you do that on that authentic chasm. But we overcame the barriers and we became very real in the conversation. So was this authentic? 10 would be like, dang, we explored and discovered places that we didn't know that existed before. 1 would be like, oh my gosh, not authentic at all. So was it an authentic interaction? For me, I gave myself a 9 on this one too. I think we went to some places a couple times in the conversation. I was like, ooh, should I ask that question? Should I go there? And when you do that, you're really caring about the other person. Then you say, yeah, we're going to go there. And it kind of throws you and the other person off a little bit in a good way. It's like, ooh, a little bit nerve-wracking about that. But I gave a 9 on this. And the last one is value. There was tremendous value exchange for all parties. So even when you're meeting with a client and you're trying to give value to that person, when they get a lot of value, that's great. But that's only kind of half the formula, or maybe 70% of the formula. The other 30% or 50% of the formula is, what do you get from it? What did you learn? And so oftentimes in the follow-up, I'll go back and go like, oh, this is my follow-up and my evaluation and assessment of my own behaviors there. And then there's extreme value there too. What questions could I have asked differently? So on a 1 to 10 scale on the interaction that you had, 1 being there wasn't a lot of value involved at all. No decisions were made, no great actions were committed to, there's no great value exchange. That's a 1. 10 would be like, man, there was so much value on both sides. And I gave myself an 8 on this. I learned a lot, which was great, but also, yeah, it wasn't, there could have been that other 2 points, that another 20% in that conversation that could have filled in the gap. So that's the authentic interaction, that's the intentional interaction assessment. If you add that all up, I got a 36. If you kind of multiply that by 2 because it's 10, I got a 72% on that conversation. 72%, it's a passing grade, but it's a C. So I gave myself a C, for this interaction. And I don't want to beat myself up and say, oh, that's terrible. All of this is about the gaps. And if you look at my gaps, the gaps here was all in that setup. And just to take the time to really think about this client, and that's showing that you really care. So that is my intentional interaction assessment. If you're so bold, go ahead and put that in the comments below what you assessed yourself at. And some of the things that you could do to improve, and share those with the community as well. So that's looking backwards, but let's look forwards now. So list 3 important interactions that you're going to have next week. What are 3 important interactions that you're going to have next week? Go ahead and take a few seconds to write that down. 3 interactions that you're going to have next week. And hopefully some of those are the success roles that are people that you listed out before. Great, you got 2 or 3 written down there. For me, I wrote one of mine down as philanthropic. I'm going to my alma mater. I went to Purdue University, and next week I have the opportunity to participate in an executive in residence program. And I'm going to be interacting with all these great college students. And so for me, I really like to sit down and think about, what is my intention for them? What are some of the stories that I'm going to take with me that would be valuable for them? And when I was looking at my calendar before I got ready for this, again, I looked at prospects, and I think I have 2 prospect conversations next week. It's like, way short. So I'm going to work on that this weekend. Look a little bit more at what are some of the prospects that I should be putting into my day. My goal is to have 5 client or prospect conversations every day, whether it just be texts or emails or something, but just to reach out to people or have live conversations with them. So there is the intentional interaction plan, and if you're not aware of what that is, just go ahead and email me and let me know, and I'll send you a copy of it. But the intentional interaction plan is the way I set up the every interaction, important interaction every month. And I do at least about 10 of those every month and prepare for those important interactions. All right. First, this is a stopping point here. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad that you've joined us, so glad that you're taking time on this morning to take care of your personal development, and also looking at your intentional interactions and your authentic interactions. And so hopefully you've also marked some important points, and you've marked some action items. Great. Well, now I'd like to shift to our topic of the day. And I'm very excited about this topic. Had a conversation with a client yesterday about how do you show up authentically for video. And going online, this all started when I became an entrepreneur a couple years ago. And people are like, you got to do Facebook Lives. You got to do those Facebook Lives. So I started going like, well, before I start doing a lot of Facebook Lives, let me go out there and look at a few. So I was watching them, and it was like people walking around in their backyard. It's like, my flowers are beautiful. Oh, there's my cat. Oh, isn't this wonderful? And I was like, what's going on? I mean, I know we want to be involved in people's lives, but I didn't see a lot of value in that. if I go back to, our Sushifu models, the Sushifu models, like, where's the value in those things? And so I started looking at this going, I got really frustrated saying, like, where's the value? Why aren't people like planning these out and putting value out in the world? Maybe I was really used to training programs where you got trained up on something, and so what was the value right up front? Here's my objectives and all that kind of stuff. And I had to kind of ease that off a little bit, but also I have a standard for like my time and how I want to get value out of my time. So I started saying, like, I'm not going to start shooting until I can put something together of value. And then that became my own trap. It's because I didn't start shooting stuff. I was like, well, then I'll wait for this. And then it became a procrastination. I put so many barriers in front of me of shooting. And then I realized I was nervous about shooting to the camera, just like this. I was like, where's that coming from? Because I was media trained by I could have been interviewed by CNN. I taught communication for 10 years in college. I taught effective presentations. That was the very first chargeable hour in my 30-year career, was teaching effective presentations to 30 clients. So I had all these things. I actually performed on stage as a dancer a gazillion years ago, but all these ways of being in front of people, and I couldn't stand in front of a camera and shoot. Why was that? And so this became this huge barrier for me. So I want you to take a few seconds right now and list out all the reasons why you don't shoot video or that you procrastinate. So go ahead and take some time and just write down all the reasons that you don't shoot video. And I'm going to share with you a couple of mine as you write yours down. The fear of messing up. There's that. There's the quality piece. It's like, well, I don't have the right video equipment. I don't have the right audio equipment. My lighting is just a little off. I had all those excuses for a long time. What else did I have? Oh, it won't be good enough. Now, I have a world-class standard here. I'm this world-class professional, and if somebody else in my professional world sees a video that doesn't match my view of myself, remember, my view of myself, not their view of me, but my view of myself as being world-class, well, that's not good enough. Well, those are all bad reasons not to shoot. So these are all barriers, and these are your barriers, your personal barriers. So on mine, I started a YouTube channel, 2 years ago, called Success and Significance. You could probably still go out there and look at some of my videos out there. And when I launched, it was messy. Kind of like today was too, a little messy to start with. And that could be so disheartening. But part of it is like, I don't do this just to show up as this pristine character in front of you. But what I'm trying to do is learn. I'm learning how to deliver with value, learning how to deliver well to you with a certain standard. But also part of that is I can't get that done if I don't start. So I launched my YouTube channel, and it was messy. It was terrible. But part of it too was so many times we start an initiative like that and we have an output that we want to get. Oh, I'm going to start my YouTube and I'm going to get all these subscribers. I'm going to, get a big email list out of that. And what I learned from that, from my journey, and hopefully this is helpful for you, is when I start something new, I don't start it with a result. I start it with the intention of to learn. So when I did my YouTube channel, I finally got to a place that's like, I'm trying to learn this. Learn how to be in front of the camera, learn about my tech, learn about my audio stuff, learn about all of that, ask experts, have people view my videos. All that was an important part of that. But in order for people to look at my videos, I needed to shoot them first. So that's the key thing here, folks, is shoot it and then get some feedback on that. So my advice to you is just begin. And it's all about the learning and not necessarily about the result. And here's another piece of kind of this rule that I have for myself. Do something for 18 months before you quit. What? So many times I've heard people say, like, I did this, and I did this with my YouTube channel. I did it for 6 months and I quit. Oh, right now I would have been at 2.5 years. That would have been just so awesome just to have that keep going. So I encourage you, once you start the thing, just get in it for at least 18 months before you quit. So those are some thoughts, but I wanted to get into some specifics about how to show up. 6 setup strategies to authentically show up on video. These are setup strategies. So this isn't actually being on camera. This is more about setting up to be on camera. So the first one is prepare speaking points. Now, you have your own style. Some people just get up there and riff. Well, oftentimes you ramble way too much when you do that. So some people, for executives, when I was coaching executives for, 17, 20 years of my career, most of them said, like, give me a script. I'm like, the only people that are good with scripts are actors. So when you give somebody the actual words to use, that's really hard. And people don't like to use teleprompters too. And I just don't think that's people's natural style. So my view of this is give people bullet points. So what are the bullet points? What are your speaking points for this thing? If you're going to talk for 5 minutes, or you're going to talk for 40 minutes, what are the 5 speaking points that you want to get across? So that's one piece to set up authentically on video is prepare the speaking points. Put a good story in there that you don't have to put a lot of prep into the story because it's your story. Number 2, imagine talking to a particular person. So when I do videos and I do Facebook Lives or something like that, or my YouTube or Instagrams, I literally sit there before I start shooting, I think about, I'm talking to Peter or I'm talking to Bridget. I go like, okay, I'm talking to Kevin. And then I put it on and I go like, I got that person, I'm talking to him like I'm sitting across the table from him. And I know that people give that advice all the time, but it really helps to say, I'm talking to this particular person. Third, rehearse until it flows. If this is a really important conversation to have, rehearse until it flows. Now, some people say memorize, and I'm like, I'm not a big memorize guy. But I would say rehearse a few times, 10 times, if it's really important. Rehearse the opening, rehearse it until it flows, until it comes off of your lips. One of the things that I do every day is I do my purpose statement. I have a purpose statement. And I do it every day. And so I guess that's rehearsing it, but now it's memorized and I can move things around on it and I can change different words of it so I can really work with it because now it's in my body. So rehearse it until it flows if you want to set up authentically for video. Third, know your why. What is the most important objective that you want to get out of a conversation, out of that authentic interaction? What is your why? And a lot of times things may go wrong. Things get, you get technical hiccups. You get, somebody asking a question that's not on the agenda. But if you know your why, you can always go back to, this is the most important thing that I want to get across. This was really important for me when I was doing orals. Orals is when you are presenting to a client to sell them some work. And usually orals means that there's other competitors that are also doing presentations to the client. And part of this is knowing my why is oftentimes they'd say, Patrick, you have 20 minutes for your slot. And then I'd have 6. If I only have 6 minutes and I have all these PowerPoint slides and all these things to do, but if I know my why, I know exactly how I'm going to condense that 20 minutes into 8 to 5 to 3 to 2 to 1. I just know exactly what my why is. So knowing your bottom line why is so important to set up authentically. Number 5, this is so important. Keep yourself talk positive. So often we go like, I hate doing videos. Stop saying that. This is going to be so tough. Stop saying that. When I turn on the camera, I'm just going to stutter. Stop saying that. Part of this is keep yourself talk positive. I love my clients. This is video day. Man, I get to go out there and serve today. So how do you keep your self-talk positive Even when you're in the midst of technical difficulties and things like that, keep the self-talk positive. And number 6, warm up mentally and physically. And what that means is warming up, psyching yourself up. It's like, oh man, this is so good. I'm going to be able to work with these people. I'm going to drive this value thing. I'm going to change people's lives today. What is your big mission statement? For me, it's change the world for good. And I know that each of you are working on doing that, changing the world for good. And if I can give you just one snippet of information today that just changes the trajectory of what you're doing, something little, something big, that you're going to put that in your world and you're going to change the world a little bit faster, better, less risk, more impactful. If I can give you just that one little nugget today was totally successful. And so for me, that's how I mentally psych myself up. It's like, here's my opportunity to do this. And then physically, get the molecules in your body rolling. I do jumping a little bit beforehand. I turn on some good music and stuff like that. I get enthusiastic. So, psych yourself up physically as well before you start. So that's setting up authentically on video. Now, let's talk about how to show up. So now you've set it up. How do you just show up? So you're in it, in the video itself. First of all, start strong. And what I mean by that is, when you start strong, think about what you're rehearsing over and over, that opening line. Maybe it's the opening line every time. For me, when I start Authentic Interaction Mastery, I was like, welcome to Authentic Interaction Mastery, where we explore and discover innovative ways to interact with in our daily lives to change the world for good. Something like that. Wow, that's starting strong. That's saying why people are here and getting people enthusiastic. So come up with what is your opening for most of your videos. Secondly, level up your energy. So when you're in it, sometimes when we get into a longer video, this is a long one for you guys, it's like periodically throughout, I have in my notes here, it's like, level up, Patrick, it's like, okay, let's go. Let's just make sure that we're totally in this and take this moment to sort of go like, I got to level up from 7 to 8 right now to be here for you and to keep your energy in the game as well. So you got to level up your energy along the way. Vary your voice. And I learned this one from Roger Love. We go into these videos and so many times like da-da-da-da, da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. It's like giving a speech in high school. That's not what we're here to do. Varying your voice means changing all the vocal qualities. The melody goes up and down and goes around. The pace goes a little faster, goes a little slower. The tone goes deeper, 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 goes higher, higher, higher. Use all that range of your vocalics so that you can really show up. So varying your voice gives people something to engage in differently. What words do you want to really emphasize? I love this one. What words do you want to emphasize? It's like embrace your future. How do you really take that word? Take one of your purpose statements maybe and look at what word do you want to really physicalize that word. Maybe for me it's like, how does authentic sound? Maybe every time I use the word authentic, I go like, let's talk about being authentic. How does that sound? So take each word and think about what does that sound like. Number 4, showing up, is own your mistakes. And, which hopefully I've done today, I had these technical difficulties and I was like, oh, so sorry that it took so long, but I've learned a lot from that, but don't overdo it. So sometimes like, I messed up here, I don't know where I am here. Okay, now here I am. And it's like, no, don't do that. Don't overdo, but own your mistakes. Like you're in front of a friend. Like, you're on stage. Or anytime that you're with a friend, you might stutter a little bit. That's okay. So own your mistakes, but don't overdo it. Shoot straight through. If you're doing a video, shoot straight through. What I mean by that is do one take. Now you might do multiple takes of one take to get to the one you want, but do shoot straight through. Because what happens is and I did this so much in my YouTube channels, like I'd start and I'd stumble, and I'd start and I'd stumble, and I would start over and over and over again. until my brain got used to stopping at a certain point of just the introduction. When I got the introduction down, I'd go on to the next part and I'd stumble there because I hadn't practiced through. So part of this is, when you're learning a golf swing, you don't learn how to do this part of the golf swing, then that part of the golf swing, then that part of the golf swing. Man, you got to swing all the way through. So when you golf, man, you swing all the way through, and if you don't hit it very well, then learn from the whole golf swing. So shoot straight through. That's so important to get that right. And number 6, end clean. And what I mean by that is, think of an ending for every video that you do. For me, it's I have my 3 phrases: live 100% empowered, learn deeply, and shine boldly. And I might riff on that a little bit differently each time, but those 3 are my clean endings every time. Why? Because those are my core to my 3 philosophies that are really important to me. So I encourage you to think about, what are your 3 statements or your big statement at the end of any video that you want to leave people with. It's like your signature statement that you're sending people out in the world with, these great nuggets that you just gave them, and go out there, change the world for good. So what are your 3 statements for ending clean? Okay, hopefully this has been helpful for you. And we're going to go on a little bit more on this because I have one more thing I want to share with you. I got to get this to you. So what are the 5 factors to assess a video broadcast? So one of the things, the very first things I do, I love building tools. Love building tools. So in building the tools, one of the things I did early on when I was watching all these terrible Facebook Lives, I built a tool. So again, if you want this tool, send me an email and I'll send it to you. But basically, assessing a video broadcast. And what I did with this, and I do this when I'm assessing somebody else's, but also when I'm assessing mine. I hate watching my own videos, by the way. But these are the things that I use to assess a video broadcast. First of all, what was the value of takeaways? If there's a 5-minute video, and I sit back and I think about, what was the value of the takeaway from this? And how I think about that is, the value of the takeaway is there a behavior of mine that's changed? Is there a decision that I'm going to make different? So what is the value of the takeaways? Is there something that's going to change my life now? Wow, that's the value of takeaways. Some videos, man, high value. Sometimes I go like, I don't know why I just gave away 3.5 minutes of my life. So value of takeaways, that's the first one. The second one, usually every video has a story. And so when I think about stories, I think about story relevance. What was this relevance of the story that they taught, they spoke about? Sometimes I hear a story and I go like, not sure how that's connected to what you were teaching, not sure how that's connected to me. And so many times that's not a lack of, it may not be that the story is bad, but it just could be that they didn't link the story to me. So I hear this a lot with folks. They say, I've got this story about a brain injury. And so people go like, well, but how many people have brain injuries? And it's like, it's not about brain injuries. It's like, how many times has your brain just not functioned you want it the way to function? We've all had that. We've all forgotten something somewhere along the line, something really important. So how do you talk about mental acuity, maybe, rather than talking about mental trauma? It's like, or brain trauma. It's like, what is the general universal truth of the thing you're trying to teach? And bounce that back to people as a part of your story. Now your story is relevant. So number 2, story relevance. Third, vocal quality. And I mentioned this before. You can see PVMPT. I look at that and I say pumped. Vocal quality is about pace, volume, melody, pitch, and tone. And I'll do a whole video on this for you guys if you want. Let me know if that's interesting to you. But if you really look at the vocal quality, what is the pitch, the volume, the melody, the pace, and the pitch and the tone of things? So all of those, when you really get good at this, you can actually insert those into how you deliver. Wow, I'm still a student on this. I've taught communication for 10 years in college, and I saw this, I was like, oh wow, so much to learn here. So when you're trying to convince somebody of something, what does PVMPT look like? If you're trying to get consensus, PVMPT should be different. if you're trying to just listen and be empathic, PVMPT is different. I hope that makes sense to you. And so vocal quality, big thing about assessing a video broadcast. Energy and enthusiasm, so important here. Energy and enthusiasm is about passion. What kind of passion are you putting into the video, or did somebody put into it? And so many times, I think about this as like an over-under as well. So if it's over-energetic and enthusiastic, it feels like you're getting sold a used car. But if it's under, it's like da-da-da-da-da-da. And I bet most of the time our videos are under-energized and under-enthusiastic. So I really encourage you to level that up. And the fifth part is video and audio quality. And I learned this one from my good friend Charlie Caldwell. And video is great, the visual part, but you gotta get the audio right. Audio's gotta be spot on right, because that's what people will check out from. Visually, it can be kind of darkened and all that kind of stuff, but people forgive you for that. But the audio part, that's the tough part. So these are assessing a video broadcast. And again, I have a tool to evaluate that. And again, hit me with that if you're interested in seeing that tool. So what don't people get right? And I'm going to write this up on the board here. What don't people get right? First of all, in doing video, let's not use black, let's use blue. First of all, people don't start. That was my issue. People don't start. That's one of the biggest issues, is they don't start. So they say, oh, it's got to be perfect. I want to do this right. So then they just purely don't start. The second one is all about negative self-talk. Negative self-talk, that is one of the biggest issues with people, is that they say, I can't do this. And I know that is true for me. Oh, I gotta go like, oh, I gotta do video today. Okay, that's a bad start to the day. Like, I get to do video today. This is a day that I get to share with my clients and the world out there. Let's change the world for good. Next one is, and I mentioned this before, about passion. People get this wrong, and it's an inappropriate level of passion, meaning it's over under. So if there's too under passionate about it, how am I supposed to get passionate about what you're talking about if I'm just talking really low and I just don't have a lot of vocal quality differences and I don't really know why you should be looking at this? No! Passion should be like, level it up. It's like, I'm so passionate about this. I want you to change the world for good. Man, I gotta get behind that statement. So passion, inappropriate level. The next one, not valuable. Oh, and this is the biggest one. I walk away from so many Facebook Lives and other stuff, I was like, what was that? So that's one of the biggest mistakes to make, is what was valuable here? Focus on your why. And the last one, I like this. It is a rambling wreck. And sometimes I just watch some of these things and they're rambling about life. It's like stream of consciousness. And it's like, I get it, but that is not helpful to the world to just go on about stream of consciousness, because what's in your brain may not be really helpful to me. So as a stream of consciousness, package the value, put it out there, and know that this little package, this little gift I'm giving you, this wisdom gem I'm giving you, is going to change your life somehow, and have confidence in that. So those are the things that people kind of get messed up in this the video broadcasts. Gee, I hope this has been helpful for you. I encourage you to use the video broadcast assessment tool to look at videos, your own videos, to get better at it. And then also, I encourage you to complete the intentional interaction plan. To really look at the intentional interaction plan, and I'll send that to you if you'd like, and fill those out for 2 or 3 interactions that you have next week, maybe 10 for the month. Just go because planned interactions go better than unplanned interactions. Man, I taught selling to sellers for 17 years. And one of the things that we know is that call plans planned interactions go better than unplanned ones. Okay. Well, I hope this got a couple questions answered for you. Hopefully you've got some good ideas here about how to move forward. Did you mark some very important points? Did you highlight some important things today? I hope you got 2 or 3 just good wisdom nuggets out there that you can change and do some things differently next week. And I hope you can see how this authentic interaction planning really helps you change your interactions and make those more authentic and exchange more value in your life. Well, that's it for today, for this session. Thank you so much for your attention today, sticking with me today. And as always, I'm going to leave it with this. Live 100% empowered, because we're not a victim of anything in our lives, not a victim of circumstance or other people. Learn deeply as you have this morning, which is awesome. And also, gosh, put your talent in the world where it shines boldly. Do those 3 things, and authentic interaction mastery is yours. Thank you so much. See you next month.